Welcome to the Nest Podcast, your weekly home for sports news, video game reviews, and hot takes with your hosts, Brandon, Zach, and Justin. Enjoy the show.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode 102, presented by Sportszilla. I'm your host, Brandon. Joining me is my co-host, Zach. Zach, what's up, my man?
How's it going?
Oh, dude, it's going. How was your weekend?
Not bad. Pretty chill.
Yeah, just hanging around the house, not going out, not enjoying the world like most of us these days.
Yep, being a recluse.
Yeah, we've been trying not to take the kids out places and things like that. And I live in Florida where it's a bajillion degrees every other day. So I went out to Walmart trying to find something that we could use to beat this heat. And they were sold out of pretty much everything. They were out of super soakers. They were even out of like those packs of the water balloons and stuff like that. I was like, crap, man. Went and tried to find some slip and slides. They didn't have those. So I made one. And it worked out better than I could have planned, brother.
Yep. Isn't it funny how that works?
Yeah, I mean, and I spent probably the same or less than I would have spent on like a fancy slip and slide or whatever. And now I've got one that I can reuse over and over again. I've got the oscillating sprinklers that I used them today around the trampoline while the kids were out there bouncing on the trampoline. So they had like the rain waters flowing over them and they were slipping and sliding in the trampoline. So yep. We've definitely hit on something with this. And who needs those prepackaged things?
Right. Instead of buying a single use or a only used for one specific thing, now you have tarps and water sprinklers that you can use to water the lawn and tarps to use with whatever else. Oh, and they also can be used for a slip and slide. Yep.
Yeah, we have like the built-in in the ground sprinkler heads and all that stuff, but we never even use that. These things are much more convenient because you just screw them onto the water hose and the kids can jump through them and play and all that kind of stuff. So it's great.
Sure.
It works out perfect for us.
Yep.
But we've got a lot going on. By the end of this week, we will have baseball.
Yep.
Holy shit, we're going to have baseball.
Yep. It seems like something still could derail it, but I mean, we're as close as we've ever been.
Well, this year. Yeah, for sure. We got spring training and then it got halted. Then we got spring training 2.0 and now we're officially moving into opening day. One thing's for sure though, we will not be seeing any baseball played in Canada.
Yep.
The Toronto Blue Jays got word that they can't host home games in Toronto. So now they're scrambling with a week left before opening day to find a new place to play.
Yeah, that's rough.
It seems like Buffalo was an option on the table. That's where their AAA team, the Buffalo Bisons, that's where they play. But the park is a AAA park and doesn't have the right stuff to get it up to MLB standards. Their cameras and review and replay system is subpar. The clubhouses, they say, are a lot smaller, so it makes it more difficult for social distancing in our 2020 world of coronavirus where we have to stay 6 feet away from everybody. So I guess the latest is that they're trying to play at PNC Park where the Pirates play. So that's going to be interesting to have two teams hosting home games from one stadium.
Yeah.
You think they're planning on trying to add up the total number of wins that both teams get and try to field one team for the playoffs?
I mean, it'd be the only way that either of those teams get in there. And granted, I will say that the Blue Jays definitely have some good young bats.
They don't have arms though.
No, yeah, it's not enough to get into the World Series. But speaking of that, I think the 60 game season, if it does finish out and we get to an actual playoff and World Series, I think a team that just comes out of nowhere could potentially win the whole thing because it's a lot harder to play 162 games and to be good enough to make it to the playoffs. When you cut that way down, I think a team can get hot late if they string together a string of 15 games where they win 12 or 13 of them, that's a huge chunk of the entire season.
And on the other side of that coin, if you're one of those teams that's, projected to be a playoff team, but you have 5, 6, 7 game skid, you're dropping in the standings big time, buddy.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of teams, whether or not they make it in, are going to be a 1 or 2 game difference. It's going to be super tight.
I think you're right, and I think it's going to make for a very competitive brand of baseball. I think it's definitely going to feel like every game matters.
Absolutely.
We've talked about it several times that October baseball is the best baseball because it's do or die. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much how this entire season's going to be, because if you lose, you're not making the playoffs, you're gone. Go home. You're done. Thanks for coming.
Yep.
And in a shortened season like this, you've got a lot of guys that are looking at free agency at the end of it. They want to come and show out because they want to try to get paid. Mm-hmm. If somebody like Mookie Betts has an off season to where maybe he only puts up a 250 batting average with 18, 19 homers and 30 or 40 RBIs, they're going to look at that and be like, okay, well, we're only going to offer you 8 years at $150 million as opposed to the 12 years 420 that he wanted whenever he left Boston. So that's something to really keep an eye out for, because I think a lot of guys are going to end up getting screwed in free agency because of all this.
Yeah, definitely. And I wonder if some sort of agreement will be made where they have to factor in this season differently. They have to sort of pad the numbers. I don't know how they're going to do it, because I don't necessarily think it's fair for those guys that are coming into free agency or whatever the case may be to have this shortened season. And who knows what they would have done with 100 more games. I don't know. There's no good way to do it, because what's done is done. We can't go back and start the season over. We're honestly lucky to have any season, because I think you and I were both convinced that the owners would just say no and we wouldn't have a season at all. So
yeah, we talked about it and we preached the gospel that these owners were going to back out because they ultimately wouldn't want to field a team. And then once the players started dropping out, it was like, well, that's going to be the justification. But to their credit, they've stuck to their guns and made it this far, at least. I hope they don't screw it up.
Yep.
Because there's still a lot riding on all this and a lot of questions out there. But going back to Mookie real quick, I've got to say this. If I'm the Boston Red Sox, I offer the same exact offer no matter what, because you know what you've got in that kid. Know you've got a perennial MVP, a guy that brought you several Golden Gloves, several Silver Sluggers, and a World Series ring. You offer him that same 10-year, $300 million, regardless of how his season goes this year, because you know he's worth at least that. And with the Red Sox being able to trade away Mookie and David Price and get under that threshold, they're no longer getting penalized. They can bring him back. And then imagine the outfield next year of Mookie Betts, Andrew Benintendi, and Alex Verdugo. Mm-hmm. That's an all-star outfield in Fenway Park, and I'm for it.
Yeah. I think the Red Sox really, really made out with this whole Mookie thing, because he didn't really get to play. I mean, he's going to play this 60-game season or whatever, but it's not like he lit it up over there in LA, and that pads his numbers. He kind of just, I mean, we'll see what he does this year, but
I think he'll have pretty good offensive productivity. I mean, with that lineup, how could you not, especially now that they're going to have a DH in there as well. Yep. But I still think if you're the Red Sox, you offer him what you think that he's truly worth. And I think they made that offer before he even left Boston.
Yep.
You say, okay, Mookie, here's 10 years, 300. I would even go as high as 350 just to bring him back, to make sure he comes back to Boston. And then you really have to look at that trade and assess and say, the Red Sox won that trade hands down.
Yeah, but I mean, what did they give up? I
At
couldn't even name it.
that point, if he comes back, they would have given up David Price.
Right. An aging pitcher. I mean, big whoop.
And think of all that they would have gotten in return. If Mookie comes back to Boston, then they got Alex Verdugo, Connor Wong, and our future second baseman, Jeter Downs, for David Price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge.
And 60 games worth of Mookie Betts.
Right. And they got to be under the threshold, stop paying the fees. They get to build their prospects.
Stop sacrificing draft picks and things of that nature. That's the plan. That's what you do. But that's one of the silver linings, I guess, if you're a Red Sox fan going into the offseason this year, is the chance that you could lure Marcus Lynn Betts back to your team. But there are other silver linings, and I think coronavirus is possibly to not to blame, but to thank for that. There's a dude named Daniel Bard. He used to pitch for the Red Sox back in 2013. And after that season, well, he came in as a starter, and they tried to make him into a bullpen guy and then back to a starter. And they kind of messed with him a little bit in that regard. And after that season, he was out of the league. He hasn't pitched since 2013 in the big leagues, but it was announced this weekend that he made the Colorado Rockies opening day roster. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, Daniel Bard, man. That is awesome. 7 years away from the game, and he's back on an opening day roster.
Or as a pitcher again?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge, because it would make a lot more sense to come back as an outfielder or something, a position that's a little easier. But to be out of the game for 7 years and to come back, that's very impressive.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see how he does this year. Of course, I'm kind of a Rockies fan in the NL side. I really enjoy watching them play. Something about watching homers fly at mile high is just incredible. But I really hope that Daniel Bard does well this year. And more good news on I was kind of wish Justin was on here, but I know he's dealing with some other stuff. But the Braves had some good news come out this weekend in that Freddie Freeman is back with the team.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And that's huge, because I know at one point, I think it was last Friday, he had 104.5 fever. Yeah.
I had read that he had quite the bout with COVID, and it was affecting him pretty badly.
Yeah, apparently he was praying for his life because he thought that it was curtains. And keep in mind, this is a guy that's 30 years old. He's a professional athlete with no other major health concerns.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine, like, if he wasn't a world-class athlete, he would probably want to be one of those statistics right now.
Right. And that's the scary thing about this whole disease is a lot of people will say that, the athletes don't really have anything to worry about because they're in the best shape of their life and stuff like that. But it affects people completely differently. A lot of the NBA players initially, whenever everything shut down, they had it and they were all basically asymptomatic. And then this is what happens to Freddie Freeman. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about how ridiculous this whole thing is, because it's not predictable. Because when healthy people, get as sick as he does, and some others are completely asymptomatic, there's no deciding whether or not it's safe or not. Because I think for a lot of players, they see that and they go, that could be me. I could be that, and it couldn't work out as well for me as it did for Freddie Freeman. I can't blame him for that.
I think that's a big part of the reason why, like, Nick Markakis and some of the other guys, Felix Hernandez from the Braves, why those guys were opting out. It's like, well, if Freddie's got it, I don't want to get it. Mm-hmm. But Jeff, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Yeah, of course. We hope you are feeling better. I hope it's gotten a lot better since last week. I know last week was kind of rough on you, and I didn't watch any of the WWE this weekend, so I'm not sure what you're alluding to on the Rey Mysterio eye loss. Is that a legitimate thing, or was that some kind of gimmick in a match? If it's a match gimmick, then I'm just going to go ahead and say that sucked.
That's funny.
But
I didn't know Rey Mysterio was even still active.
Yeah, man. That's a guy that he bounces around a lot, I guess. Last I heard though, last I saw of him anyway, he wasn't with WWE anymore. He was doing some kind of Lucha Underground or whatever, but I haven't really followed professional wrestling like that in a long time. So
Yeah.
I have been following a lot of MMA, and I saw that we had talked about it whenever Habib's dad died, that it might throw some monkey wrenches into the plans that UFC currently has.
Mm-hmm.
And for everything that I'm seeing, it's definitely looking like the Justin Gaethje fight in September is being pushed, and the UFC is not rushing Habib to come back anytime soon, not rushing him on a timetable, just saying like, hey, take as much time as you need to deal with this. But Habib sent a message through his manager that he was going to be ready to fight by the end of the year.
Oh, wow. That's very shocking, honestly.
So
I wonder if he'll just call it in per se, for this. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say what he'll do, because I don't know. Either it was just all talk when he was saying that he wouldn't fight without his dad in his corner, or this is just his last hurrah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think that his dad not being there is a big part of it, but he is a man of honor, and he's already agreed to this fight. He's saying like, all right, Justin Gaethje, you destroyed Tony Ferguson. You're probably one of the best fighters in the world, and I want to fight the best fighters in the world. So yeah, I think he wants to live up to that. And his manager made it sound like he still had some more stuff that he wanted to accomplish in the mixed martial arts sport. So
that's surprising.
Surprising. We'll see if he actually continues to fight after this one, or if he puts the gloves down in the ring and walks out as a champ or as a former champ.
Yeah. I something tells me that he, unless it's all just for show, something tells me that he may Triple C style retire if he does win or lose or whatever the case might be for that fight. I don't know, because he, even before his dad died, he had talked about not needing to fight anymore. He has nothing else to do. He doesn't give a shit about fighting Conor again. So, I mean, I can't imagine that his dad dying would be ammo for him to continue fighting, unless that's just the way he feels. I mean, who knows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's weighing on his mind, but we'll see.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure is we know we're going to get at least one more good fight out of him. And I think that's going to be a really good one.
Yeah. I mean, if the Tony and Khabib fight was any indication, man, because I mean, we all basically thought that Tony was next level compared to everyone else other than Khabib, and Khabib was the question. Well, Gaethje went in there with very little notice and did what he did. So we also know that Khabib isn't necessarily a stand and bang kind of guy.
No.
So we'll probably finally get to see Gaethje wrestle, and by all accounts, he's no slouch in that department. So, man, this is, if any fight were up in the air, this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I agree. It's one to watch, and if it's coming on by the end of the year, it sounds like it'll probably be one of their maybe December, November blockbuster pay-per-views that they like to put on. You know how they like to do the big one in the summer and then a big one towards like the holiday season.
Yep.
That's probably where it'll get shuffled to.
Do you know if they're still going to do like the Fight Island thing, or was that just for?
They signed a five pay-per-view contract out there or something for Fight Island. I think they've already done 2. They had the big one that Adam and I brushed up on last week, and then they had one this past weekend that I didn't watch. I
didn't know a single fighter on it. But there was a champion that came out of it, I guess.
Yeah, no, they had some good fights, it looked like. Yeah. And apparently he's a destroyer.
Yeah.
That new 25 champ, but
yeah, the reason I bring that up is I feel like this would be a perfect fight for Fight Island, because if there's any kind of questions about Khabib getting to the country, well, he doesn't have to do that. He just has to go to Abu Dhabi, which is, I'm sure, much closer to Dagestan than the U.S. is.
But the problem, I think, may be going forward is, can any of these American fighters get over there?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good point.
If they're shutting off travel from the United States to all these other places, is that only going to be reserved for international fighters going forward, or does Dana White have some kind of like loophole that he can get his guys into that gets them there? You know?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I wonder what the travel restrictions will be like whenever that fight is coming up.
I mean, who knows? This coronavirus, man, it's changed the world. It's changed everything. And it seems like with all these sports trying to do stuff and all that stuff, I just really hope that they don't mess up. You know, the NBA, they've got their whole bubble going on right now. And I saw something today that's really kind of cool. They're building their own barbershop in the bubble, which I think part of that has to do with LeBron putting on his little The Shop show. Like, he's going to have content coming out of that barbershop. But I mean, come on, you're in this bubble. You can't go anywhere. Bring somebody in to get me lined up. So
did you see the little I think it was like a comment, but someone said real life 2K neighborhood.
yeah, that's basically what it looks like.
Yeah, they're literally making a NBA 2K neighborhood in this bubble.
I hope 2K21 has something like this in it, where it's like this is your playoff bubble or whatever. They make it into the video game, man. It's such a part of our life now.
Yeah,
you might as well embrace it and just go with it. But
yeah, speaking of the bubble, I kind of feel like that's like a ticking time bomb. I can't expect these 20-year-old athletes to want to stay in this bubble for however long they're going to do that and not have any interaction with people of the opposite sex or whatever you might do as a 20-year-old that's young and a super athlete and makes a lot of money. I don't know. I think I don't think it's going to work. I think someone's going to leave or someone's going to bring someone in and it could cause a shitstorm.
I mean, it very well could, but from what it sounds like, the NBA is actually done pretty well, and you know, they're allowing limited contact, so to say. Like, you can still order Uber Eats and stuff like that, and then it gets dropped off to one guy who then is in the bubble and takes it to the other guys. Oh, Jeff Baker asking the hard-hitting questions right there in the comments. I don't think it is, and that's a travesty in and of itself.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the NBA has caught on to Dr. Enough. Sadly,
it's definitely something that should happen. And Dr. Enough, if you're out there, you should be sponsoring the NBA and the Nest podcast. Speaking of that bubble, though, Zion left the bubble, and that's huge because a lot of people were saying, a lot of the talking heads on ESPN and Barstool and all that the whole playoff scheme that they threw together was essentially so that they could get Zion in the playoffs. They wanted him in the playoffs in his first year because that's going to get eyes on the product. That's going to just continue to grow the sport and to grow his brand specifically. But now he's gone. He may get to come back or whatever, but apparently he's got some family issues that he's dealing with.
Oh, wow. So does that mean he's like opted out of the season or?
That I don't know. Like, all it says is that he left the bubble for urgent family matters, but it doesn't say if he's allowed to come back or when he's coming back or whatever. I don't know. But do you think New Orleans could win without him?
Absolutely not. No.
I mean, Brandon Ingram's had a good season and Lonzo Ball's had a career year, but without Zion, I don't think they have enough to be able to compete, especially in the West.
Right. Yeah. I think the NBA, as soon as he wants to come back, I think they'll let him back, and they'll test him, of course, and stuff like that. But I think their best interest is getting him back in. I mean, that's their next huge superstar since LeBron.
Right. Moose is saying he wants to return if given the chance, or asking if I think so. I would think that would be the situation there, but I'm not sure. If anybody knows for sure, go ahead and drop it in the comments. But if Zion's not coming back to the New Orleans Pelicans, you can go ahead and cross them off as the list of teams that are going to make it.
Right. I remember several episodes ago, we were talking about whether or not a team, I think it was baseball, if a team wins the World Series during this short season, is it an asterisk championship, or do they just get a straight up championship? And I think we both agreed that they get a straight up championship.
Right. I mean, you can put an asterisk on individual stats and
right. Yes.
and on a season in general, but you know what? If you go through the grueling task of winning in October, grinding out those series wins, then you're a champion, man, regardless of how you got there.
Right. Now, can the same be said for this NBA season? Because
absolutely,
I think it's different, because
I don't.
In my opinion, they had a season, right? And they had to stop their season. Had they gone on, there would have been no break. Everyone basically got a huge rest period in the NBA here. And at the end of the NBA season, you'd be way more tired going into the playoffs. And injuries might be playing into that. But people have had months and months off to recuperate and to rehab anything that was ailing them. And now they get to basically start fresh. And the NBA has made it a little bit easier to get in and stuff like that, like we talked about.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's the same.
I agree with you, and welcome to the show there, Justin. He just happened to pop in here. I agree with you on that, Zach. But at the same time, I got to wonder, if you take a break and then have to get right back into playoff mode, how much rust are you going to have? You're not up to game speed. You're not probably in game condition. So how much of an impact is that going to have on the teams and on the stars of the league? The reason that I think that it does count is because they have already played a season. They've already, gotten to that point, and they didn't really have to shorten anything. They just took a break.
Yeah.
Whereas baseball, they shaved off 102 games out of their season. Same thing with NHL, though. They played their season, they took a long break, and now they're going into their playoffs. Is their champion not a champion?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. And I don't necessarily think one way or the other. It's just a thought that, and you brought up a good point. Like, is the rust of not playing going to overtake the break that they all had and the recuperation period that they all had? Because I mean, I think that the reason that teams do well at the end of the year is because they're ramping up for that playoff push, and they're used to playing. It's not anything that they're have to get used to, because they've been doing it all year. And with this break, everyone's just going to have to try to get back into the swing of things, and they're not going to get very long. And then it's going to be playoff time, and it's do or die.
Let's see. Yeah. Moose is saying that the NBA said that the games from the bubble aren't going to count towards awards. So he thinks a championship will have to have an asterisk. I think that maybe might mean towards like the MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, things of that nature, since not everybody is in the bubble. Yeah. There are teams that their season is already done. So as far as that's concerned, all the voting for MVP is done. Right. So LeBron likely is going to be the MVP of the year.
Right. And this isn't necessarily a continuation of the season. I think
it's like a restart.
Yeah. They're just doing like a, I don't even know what to call it, almost like a warm up before they just go right into their playoffs.
Right.
So, that makes sense.
Justin, what do you think about the bubble down there?
I think it's a way for them to get some kind of revenue going. It's I've been keeping up with like the players in the bubble, and it seems pretty cool for them. A different experience, something they probably will never get to see again unless this COVID thing, stretches out. But
don't wish that evil on us.
Yeah, I know, but I'm glad to get it back some way or the other. I think there's a lot of teams that were like right there on the bubble that could have made it ahead of some of these other teams, but nothing we can do about that now.
Yep, got to have a cutoff somewhere.
So,
And I
definitely.
apologize. I don't have my backdrop or nothing up. I've had a rough day, so I figured it would take me a good time to get it up. I figured I might as well just jump in. So
Yeah, no worries.
No worries, man. We're glad that you were able to hop in. Yeah, you've had quite the day. It sounds like.
yeah, it's been interesting for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks for the comment there, Cody. We appreciate that for sure. The Nest podcast is sponsored in part by the Beard Struggle. If you've ever tried to grow a beard, then you know the struggle. We can help you out. The Beard Struggle has tapped into centuries of Viking knowledge to inspire beard growth and overall health. Tap into your inner Viking and check out some of the great beard products at thebeardstruggle.com. The ultimate kit comes with everything that you're going to need to get your beard on point. You get day and night elixir oils. You're going to get a scruff balm and a beard balm. You're going to get shampoo, conditioner, a nice brush to keep everything looking good. Again, that's thebeardstruggle.com. And when you use Nest 20 at checkout, you're going to save 20% on that first order. Guys, definitely go check it out. Your women will love it. Guys, you still using your products. What are your wives saying about it?
Nothing but good things.
Oh, yeah, Allison thinks it smells good.
My wife will cuddle up in my arms almost every night, and she's just like, you smell so good. I mean, come on, guys. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yep.
Justin, we've got football around the corner.
Yes, sir.
It's coming up. Well, the rookies are supposed to be reporting to training camp and all that stuff today and tomorrow for most teams. Some teams have already said that they're going to push that back so that they can wait until the rest of the team shows up. Then they'll bring the rookies in with them. But it seems like they're already starting to do some of the testing and things of that nature. And then they've already got 72 players that have tested positive. Sounds like a lot, but whenever you consider the amount of people that they've tested, it falls pretty much in line with the national average for numbers and stuff like that, the percentages. So that being said, do you think that the NFL is going to get delayed?
I don't think there'll be a preseason altogether, which is going to hurt some of those guys that wasn't draft picks, the ones that come in off the street. There's going to have to be something in place for them. Maybe like an off camp somewhere that in case somebody needs somebody, they can go take a look or get information about a certain player. Kind of like one of these IGA academies or one of these academies, they're going to have a spot like that for these guys because they're not going to get to show their stuff on the field. So you can only keep 53-man rosters, and you got to think with COVID, you're going to want to be smarter than ever with those positions just in case, it goes through the offensive line or, we talked a little bit about the quarterbacks in the past episode. So every spot is important.
You said something important there, Justin. 53-man roster. In baseball, they extended their rosters. They're allowing them extra people because of that reason. Do you think that's something that the NFL could also adopt? Because it seems like the NFL and MLB have kind of been walking hand in hand on this shit, at least going down the same paths. Maybe it's because they have the two shittiest commissioners out there and they're both making bad decisions left and right, but that's neither here nor there. But
yeah,
I can see that being a good idea.
If they do, they need to keep the extra players at a different facility.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in having, you could have 100 people. If somebody on your team gets COVID, it's more than likely going to spread throughout the team. So there needs to be something in place for those extra players. They just can't practice with the team. They got to do their own little thing, whether that means to hire one extra coach or something like that.
I
think it's a good idea.
I think it'd definitely be in the interest of teams to have a set of guys that have zero contact with the team in case some sort of outbreak happens or whatever, and they lose 3 or 4 teammates or something like that. And I think that's where the the younger guys that would be able to prove themselves in the preseason. That's where they get to shine. I mean, I think it's almost inevitable that some sort of outbreak is going to happen. I mean, it's a contact sport. They're around each other the whole game. If somebody does have it and they don't catch it with a test, how can they not spread it to everyone that they play with and everyone on their team and stuff like that? I think it's going to happen, but I think if they do have a set of players that are elsewhere, wherever that might be, step up, see what you can do, and we'll just go from there. And I think the NFL will probably just roll with the punches.
Yeah. To your point, Zach, JJ Watt was tweeting last night saying that they haven't come out and said how often players are going to be tested. They haven't come out with a schedule for any of that. They don't know if there's going to be fair opt-out clauses. There's not, they don't know anything. We're weeks away or days away at this point from guys supposedly reporting to camps, and they still have a million questions floating around. And Watt is one of those guys, and Mahomes is another one that's speaking out, and Russell Wilson. When these guys are talking, these are stars of the league. It's not like Joe Blow that plays, 82nd string for the Vikings or whatever. These are the stars. These are the Pro Bowl players. These are the guys that bring in the ticket sales and the jersey sales. And they're unsure, and they're being vocal about it.
Yeah. Drew Brees also tweeted out that, there needs to be some sort of plan in place or whatever. And Russell Wilson said that his wife is pregnant and they still have no idea what the process is going to be. It's a bad look for the NFL, but I wonder if they're just trying to see how it goes per se and see how the rest of these leagues do. Because I think we've all been watching what happened with MLB and the back and forth with them. And I wonder if they're just trying to avoid some sort of issue with the NFLPA and the owners like the MLB had to deal with.
Which the NFL is already asking for the players to put up 35% in escrow in case the season takes a hit or whatever. And the Players Association's like, oh, what?
Yeah. And you knew that kind of shit was coming.
Yeah. So all the people back, months and months ago, whenever baseball was having their contract disputes, and they're like, this is the reason that I don't watch baseball. These millionaires are sitting here bitching about not having enough money. I'd never watch that shit.
Yeah.
I wonder if they feel the same way about the football players. But Cody brought up a good point about the sports teams using these private testing facilities that can get the results back the next day or same day or whatever. Whereas the general public sometimes wait 2 weeks or whatever. That's something that we talked about a long time ago that kind of rubs me the wrong way. If people that work regular jobs aren't able to find out, then these millionaires and stuff getting preferential treatment kind of sucks. Yep. But at the same time, you've got to look at it like it's not just them that's getting that preferential treatment. You got to think like all the politicians in Washington are getting tested daily. All the CEOs and corporate executives and all that stuff, they're probably getting that shit. It's just the little man that's getting screwed over, really.
Yeah. I mean, there's no incentive to get us that accurate and that quick of testing. They've got billionaires for these teams that they're putting up the money to do that.
So what's the purpose of even getting tested? Like, by the time it comes back, you'd be over all the symptoms anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people that it takes them 5 days to get and that's business days, 5 business days to get their test back and stuff like that. But I mean, the technology is out there to get next day or day of testing, but it's just not available to everybody.
Yeah, I guess it is what it is. The NFL, though, like they've had all this time to plan and they've gotten all these steps in place. So they've went out and they found these testing sites that can get that next day. They can pay top dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what
why not? That's what it takes. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been listening to any of Joe Rogan's episodes, but he tests all of his guests and they get it very, very quickly. And it's because he has the money to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, if we all had millions of dollars, I'm sure we could have a stock of tests at our house right now and just jam those things in our face all day, every day if we wanted to.
Yep.
But, we were joking earlier about NFL and MLB kind of taking the same path. The NFL has actually been a little worse, in my opinion, because they got to finish their Super Bowl. They got to get all that revenue, and then they were done with their season. They just got to sit back and wait and watch everything unfold. And then they're still not prepared.
Yep.
It's like they just sat there and they're like, oh, well, by the time it gets to our time to start, this shit's going to go away. So I'm not even going to worry about planning anything now.
Yeah.
Until it got to, oh, we report next week. Uh-oh. So maybe to Moose's comment earlier, Goodell maybe is worse. But for me as a baseball fan to say that anybody's worse than Manfred, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, Manfred and Goodell definitely take the cake on, of all time, some of the worst commissioners.
I feel like Goodell at least took positive steps in the right direction this year in terms of being a better person. But as far as a commissioner, he is pretty god awful. And I don't see how either one of them can keep a job. And, it even down to the players of these leagues are pretty much hand in hand, because the NFL players are saying, like, we want to play. That's been the hashtag they've been using, just like the MLB guys were saying when and where.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same exact shit you've got going on.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think you're right. I think the NFL just assumed, well, our season doesn't start till late August, and it's March and everything's shut down, so we'll be fine by the time this rolls around. And they sat on their ass and didn't do anything about it. And here we are, and it's still a factor. And I think it'll be a factor for at least the rest of this year, if not next year too.
Yep.
The thing with the NFL too is they only play 16 games.
Mm-hmm.
So like they don't have a chance to miss half a season and, finish half a season like the MLB or even the NBA where they play hundreds of games a year. So if they don't figure it out right off the bat, then they might as well just cancel the whole year.
And to that point, Justin, 16 games, if you get coronavirus and you're quarantined for 14 games, you're going to miss 2 at the minimum.
Uh-huh.
There's a chance you could miss 3-4 games, and then that's a quarter of your season that you've set out with this virus. Imagine if somebody like Patrick Mahomes misses 4 games for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if somebody like, I don't know, just name any of these big stars start missing several games, and then they're just like, man, I don't even want to come back at this point. Like, screw this. I don't want to go through all this process again to go back and be in that locker room with 53 plus other guys where they could give this crap to me again, and then I'm going to miss another couple games. Screw this. I'm staying home.
Think about the huddle. Like before every play, they get inside of like within a few feet of each other in the huddle on every single play. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you bring up a comment that Cody made, if the teams are kept separate, I mean, that's a good theory, but I think there's a lot of personnel that each team has. You've got trainers, you've got, equipment managers and water boys and this, that, and the other that do things for the players that I don't think they could do without. I mean, I'm sure they'll probably have a short or a small staff, but there's people that are absolutely necessary for the game to run smoothly. I don't know. And it's going to be interesting to see the travel aspect of NFL. And we talked about it before that they always fly private and this and that and the other. But I think traveling is where potential players could get it. You know what I mean?
Yep, staying in different hotels. Those hotel staffs come in contact with people before the players get there and after they leave and stuff like that. So there's always going to be a chance that somebody could come in contact. It's the nature of it. And, everybody's saying like, we're all bound to get it eventually anyway. The only difference is these guys are going to have to sit out of their games and stuff like that have an impact on their team's success and their overall success going forward toward championship. Say what you will about them being millionaires and you don't care. It's still, we're all itching to get sports back. And if the sports on the TV are a watered down product, are you really going to be happy with it?
Yeah. And another thought that I've had is like, let's say someone's star quarterback like Patrick Mahomes goes out or whatever. Are they just going to tank for the rest of the season and call it a wash? Or because I mean, what do you, there's not much you can do because I mean, clearly a lot of teams don't have a backup plan. So what do you do? Do you just hope for the best and see if you can pull it together later, or do you just call this whole 2020 season just a wash?
I don't know. I know the Washington TBDs are probably hoping that this season is just a wash because we talked about, how quickly they're trying to get these testing and all their safety protocols in place. The Washington team is trying to rebrand entirely in all this time. So imagine the headaches that they're going through. And I mean, most of them are probably deserved if the allegations that are coming out are true. They need to have these headaches and they need to have a complete restructure of their entire program. But God, have you guys heard about that stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, 15 women, all of whom came from the Washington Redskins organization, have alleged sexual harassment and verbal assaults by scouts and members of Dan Snyder's inner circle. So that tells me if his inner circle is doing this stuff, then he probably knew something about it also. So, going back to what you said a few weeks ago, Zach, about the minority owners wanting out, and I kind of brushed that off as that's not that big of a deal because somebody's going to step up and be willing to buy. It might be a little bit bigger of a deal than I originally had thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if I mean, I think it's definitely going to be hard for them to find a buyer now because I don't think very many people want to be associated with someone who's got 15 allegations of sexual assault, running around their team. And that's a terrible look for the entire organization. Like, not only does your name potentially offend some people, so you are now having to change it. Your team sucks, and now you've got all this sexual assault stuff. So, I mean, just as a whole, the organization is just looking god awful.
Yeah,
I always found it funny though that like none of the sexual assault or none of the stuff comes up until there's something that's putting that team in the spotlight. Like, I just always feel like every time that happens, when it's something that, like, say the Cardinals are under investigation. Oh no, and all of a sudden all this stuff comes out. I don't know. It kind of makes it hard to believe. Like, why wasn't this coming out a long time ago?
Yeah, it's hard.
Nobody was talking about them.
I see your point, but at the same time, it's like if they're already in the news and a lot of people are already talking about it, that would be the time to strike because it's relevant.
Yeah.
A lot of times if it's just onesies and twosies coming out of nowhere when it's not really in the headlines or whatever, it probably gets swept aside. It probably gets put in back pages somewhere to where nobody ever really reads it.
Yeah. That's my thinking too, is everyone's talking about the Washington team, and what better time to get the attention of people when we're all paying attention. Because if it was week 4 last season and someone said someone with the Redskins team sexually assaulted me, that could easily be swept under the rug and the media would never pick up on it. But since there is so much light on the whole organization, it's a good time to bring something up.
One thing that is for sure, the Washington TBDs need to change more than just their name. They need to change that entire culture.
Yeah.
And hopefully Ron Rivera, their new coach, who was just hired in recently, hopefully he's going to be able to captain that ship, because I know he has in the front office a damn good reason to want to change that culture, because his daughter now works in the front offices of that organization. So, of course, he wouldn't want his daughter to be a victim of any of this sexual assault or anything like that. So I would hope that he's going to be very instrumental in making sure that shit gets cleaned up around there.
Yeah, I wonder if any allegations come directly against Snyder, if the NFL owners or whatever will try to do something about it. I don't know what they can do, but that can't be good for the league as a whole.
I'm pretty sure there's somewhere in there that says that the league can force an owner to sell if he brings, conduct unbecoming or detrimental to the league or whatever, how they phrase it.
Sure.
But at that point, I think Goodell needs to do the right thing and step up and say, you're out of here.
Yep.
And that's essentially what happened with the Carolina Panthers owner a few years ago. They forced him to sell the franchise. They stepped in and said, you've got to go, homie. I can't remember what year it was, but I do remember the NFL stepping up and telling him, you can't be here anymore because some sort of racist allegation or racist remarks that he was saying. Y'all see the Madden rankings?
Yep.
Yeah, BS.
Justin, why you say that?
Man, they've got us third out of 4, but that's fine. But they've got Carolina just 1 point below us, and then they've got the Saints like 4 or 5 ahead of us. But what I'm thinking about in Madden, you go based on players. Okay, we're starting number 1 draft picks on every position on offense. You figure our points would accumulate enough to be higher than 70.
Are they
78 or 79?
79? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Are those number 1 draft picks from this last draft?
No, they're throughout the years, but we're starting 11 of them. I mean, I ain't never heard of that number 4. But you got to think too, our offense is crazy and our defense is kind of mediocre. But
much is the story of the NFC South.
Yeah.
NFC South's going to be putting up. I'd say the over/under for NFC South games this year will be 80.
Yeah, I buy that because you guys are going to be throwing up about 40 points each because you'll score at will because the defenses are just going to lay down on the field.
Absolutely. Yeah, that whole division is very offensive driven, and more specifically quarterback driven.
What I find pretty interesting is that 6 teams were ranked above the Chiefs this year, and not saying that the defending champions should automatically get the highest ranking or whatever, but it seems a little odd. Some of the teams that are listed above the Chiefs, the Saints, I can kind of understand because they've got a lot of talent on that team too, but the Eagles above the Chiefs, that's questionable. The Ravens, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and then the big shocker, the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers were ranked above them as well.
That's what's crazy, dude. They added Gronk and Tom Brady. They've been dead last in the NFC South like 9 out of 10 years, but all of a sudden they're fucking great. I mean, what they think's happening over there? I don't understand it.
One man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's all just speculation. I mean, it's just all. No one knows what he's going to do there, and people apparently think that it's going to be pretty great, but there's no way to tell until they get on the field.
Y'all remember like 5 years ago when the Eagles drafted, like they went out and traded for like every big target, like they had like all the best corners, all the best safeties, and they were calling it the Dream Team, and they went out and won like 6 games. I feel like that's going to happen in Tampa Bay this year.
I do think that Brady will elevate some of the receivers on that team because of his knowledge of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as that, I don't know if they're going to, though, adding those 2 to the team. I don't know if it's going to make that much of a difference to propel them up to be like they're automatically in the Super Bowl type shit. And that's what people are saying.
I know.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's weird. I think they're missing a lot of pieces that Tom had in New England, most notably a great coach. You can't just leave one team, even if you are a great player, and be successful elsewhere. It's not an automatic thing.
You got to think too, the division he went to, he's going to have a heck of a lot harder time getting through that division than what he's played in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's going to have to sit there and be a gunslinger. He's going to have to throw up 5,000 yards and 40 touchdown passes, because that's the style of play in the NFC South. It's high scoring and fast paced.
Yeah, and you got to think it's going to be taxing on a guy of his age.
What's going to be more taxing is the fact that the Tampa Bay line is not going to be able to hold as well as the New England Patriot line does.
Yep.
And he's going to get crushed by week 3 and be like, shit, why did I come here?
I retired.
Yeah, he's not standing that straight up in the pocket like he did in New England.
Right.
No, he's going to have to try to be a little bit more elusive. He's going to have to do a lot of these plays where he takes those 7 steps back, and then instead of standing there like a statue, he's going to have to take a few steps forward as the pocket's collapsing. He's going to have to step up into the face of the defense to throw the ball a lot.
Yep.
And the NFC South don't have the best corners, but they do have some pretty sick defensive ends and linebackers. So,
and you know those boys are salivating to get a piece of a taste of the goat.
Yeah,
I would be. I'd be all about it.
Man, meanwhile, Cam Newton's just going to be running all over the AFC East.
Yeah, he's going to go to the East, and they ain't going to know what to do with him. Yeah.
They won't be able to handle him. It's a different style for the AFC East, and they're going to freak out.
Yeah, easy day for him up there, I think.
What do you guys think of the chances of an NCAA schedule this year?
Dude, I'll be more heartbroken without NCAA football than I will without NFL.
I think they're much more susceptible to canceling their season than the NFL is, because they're tied to colleges, and those colleges are, I'm sure those colleges don't want to have the bad press of an outbreak getting through their school or through their football programs or whatever. We've seen all the conferences that have already come out and said that we're doing conference only play. If something happens, I see no qualms in the NCAA football season being pulled.
Here's my thing. They talked about moving it to spring, which they can do and NFL can't. But if they do all in-conference games and somebody comes out of the Big Ten, the Pac-10, any of these conferences that are undefeated, and then they're bitching because the SEC team with 2 losses is in, I do not want to hear it, dude. I will shut. And I usually keep my mouth shut. The first time I hear somebody that pulls for Purdue or somebody like that went undefeated, I'm going to tear into their ass because that's ridiculous.
Yep.
Oh boy, I hope that happens now. But
yeah.
The reason I brought it up is because I was thinking, like, man, if the college football season gets canceled and they don't say put it in the spring and just 2020 is completely gone, how interesting is the 2021 NFL draft going to be?
Yeah, that's going to be a wild draft.
Because
it's going to be all up in the air. You're going to have to go based on past talent.
Yep.
To that point, if you're a guy, like say you're a senior or a junior that you're going to be an NFL player, you're going to get drafted, do you just opt out of this season and train for the NFL? Do you opt out of your college season and just say, hey, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to throw passes. I'm going to go train with my old high school coach. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to call up Odell because apparently he seems keen to catch balls from anybody except for Baker Mayfield.
You can't do that. They had the option to do. They had the option to do that shit before the last draft.
Yep.
They said they were staying with the team. They're on the team. They want the. If I'm an NFL GM or whatever, I'm not taking the kid that sat out all year. I'm taking the kid that busted his ass all year and played through the season. I'm not taking a kid who's playing backyard catch with Odell Beckham or something like that. I mean, any quarterback in college football can sit back without pads and throw beautiful balls to NFL receivers.
Say Trevor Lawrence sits out. He's getting drafted. He'll be one of the top overall picks. Say he sits out. Does that drop him?
Number 1. Yeah, it'll take him from number 1 to maybe mid to the back end of the first round.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
I don't either.
I think there's a select number of guys like Trevor Lawrence who have already made their stake at that number one draft pick, and I think teams are dead set on drafting him at that position. I definitely don't think that's the case for a lot of people. I think if a regular old running back or wide receiver decides to sit out, then that won't do him any good. But I think you have a point there. I think if Trevor Lawrence, whatever the case may be, whether there is a season or there isn't a season, if he ends up not playing this year, I don't think that hurts him at all.
I don't either.
If the season's not there, yeah, that's fine. But if they play on and he's letting his team down because of, I don't know, man. I just don't want that type of guy.
I don't think GMs give a shit about that. I think GMs see his talent and they want to bring that on their team, and they want to pay him to play football like he does at Clemson for their team.
You may be right.
I mean, look at all the shitty players that all these teams keep on their rosters anyway. Guys that you wouldn't want hanging out with your children because they're bad people, but yet they're getting paid millions of dollars because they're really good at playing football.
Absolutely. I mean, football players have murdered people and gotten deals with teams. I don't think they care at the NFL level. It's not the same. It's not the same.
It's a business.
Yeah, it becomes a business at that point. I think.
Look at Tua though.
What about
Tua? Got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt, but going in, he could have sat out a year, and probably we looked at him as the top pick going into his senior year.
And if he wouldn't have played his senior year, he would have been drafted number 1 overall.
And look at that wrist, and then he would be hurt and wouldn't have done shit probably.
Yeah, well, that's the gamble you take when you draft somebody.
If he would have went to the NFL when he first could have as the number 1 overall, he wouldn't have had to play Tennessee and get hurt.
That's what he gets, baby. If I don't hear Rocky Top, I might cry.
I know the feeling, man. I'm so ready for football. I don't know, man. So many question marks are still out there. Like we were talking about with the NFL, they haven't come up with their health and safety protocols. NCAA is they're bending down to the knee of whatever their university says, and the university's bending down to whatever the state says, because ultimately that's how universities are getting paid, is by state dollars. So they're going to listen to whatever they say. So if the states are saying, you can only have this many people on campus, what, are you only going to let the football team come and take classes on the campus? I doubt it.
Yeah. They pay the bills.
Shit. they don't boost the GPAs though.
Yeah.
No.
And that's more important to an education.
We got to take Zach to a game at Neyland, let him see the ball walk and the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't change his perception about a lot of things, though.
Oh, but he'll understand that feeling when we sing Rocky Top and why we do it and shit.
I mean, that does sound like a pretty good outing. Maybe we can have a Nest podcast live from Neyland sometime.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of years.
Sick.
Yeah, that would be pretty fun. So whoever's out there listening, if you got ties, connections to the University of Tennessee, go ahead and float our names out there. Say, hey, these guys, bring them on 50-yard line. They'll go ahead and rock a halftime show for you or something.
I'll dance.
We'll do a podcast live or something for them.
Shoot, we'll just do their play-by-play. That'd be fun.
That'd be sick. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take all you guys with us too. We'll make sure that it's a public. Public can come. Everybody can come and hang out. We'll get shit-faced. It'll be a great time.
Get a tour bus.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that would be dope. You guys have anything else you want to talk about tonight? Justin, you missed a little bit.
I want to talk about, like Zach mentioned last episode about D3 being already shutting down. The D3 has so much to do with NCAA football. Some of the best players in the country are D3 right now, because they made a stupid mistake. I got caught with weed. They failed a class. I mean, it could be a number of reasons why they didn't go Division I. But some of the best players to ever came out of D3. So that scared me to think that NCAA might not happen, because there's not a way for those guys to come out of D3 now. you can't just say, "Oh, I'm better now. I'm doing a lot." They take a chance on those guys, and those guys get a chance to go back to Tennessee, like Emmett Goodwin or Emmett Gooden, the one that hit his wife in the head with a candle the other day. We took a chance on him. Obviously, he hadn't learned his lesson.
Yeah.
But have y'all ever watched Last Chance of You on Netflix?
Yeah.
You seen it, Zach?
No, I haven't.
It's about an Indiana team, and I don't remember where the other team was from.
Somewhere down
Anyway,
south.
Yeah, it was somewhere down south. It's about a Division III football and how the players are trying to make it back to Division I, and
Sure.
they get tutors and just all the stuff they got to go through. You should just check it out, man. Once you say that was canceled, that kind of hit me in the heart because I feel like NCAA is right behind it.
Yeah, and especially with the like Zach said earlier, the interconference play only and the Ivy League schools canceled and all that stuff. And that told me a lot. Like when Harvard and Yale and all those rich people and smart people, quote, started canceling their seasons. It's like,
yeah.
But
at the same time with that though, I think their football programs are kind of a joke anyway. I mean, they have no chance to make any sort of championship regardless.
So you mean to tell me that a college values academics more than athletics?
In the Ivy League, yes.
What a novel idea that is.
Yeah, they might be one of the only ones that does that.
They'll be like, we'll duke it out in rowing.
Yeah, they're going to play chess against each other.
National champs every year.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what Justin was saying, that it sucks for those guys that won't have a chance. I mean, you got to think that's the case for every walk of life right now. I mean, people have lost jobs because of COVID. People have had to shut down their businesses. I mean, these sports athletes are not safe from this kind of stuff. And yeah, it sucks, but this thing is affecting the entire world. And I think you're going to see the effects for years to come on the sports world, because this is, I think, going to change a lot of CBAs. And MLB is a big one, I think, for me, because players are opting out left and right. And I mean, if you can play and not, or if you can get paid and not have to play, I think that changes your mindset about a lot of stuff.
I agree.
So,
yeah. All right. I guess that's a good spot to end it on. Guys, we appreciate you all listening and commenting along. That makes this show so much more enjoyable whenever you guys are spitting out your opinions and stuff. Cody said something that I want to allude to, that I told him that if he got a video of him hitting 95 miles per hour pitch off of a pitching machine, I would send him a shirt. That goes for anybody. If you send us a video and tag us and say, hey, this is me hitting a 95 mile per hour pitch, you deserve a Nest Podcast t-shirt, because hitting 95 is a feat.
Yep.
And no bunning and no slapping of the ball.
Oh no, you got to make contact. It's got to be good.
Full swing. Yeah, full swing.
Yeah, that's a good call, because I'm sure a lot of people would just go up there and bunt, huh?
Or slap at it, like keep the bat all out and just slap at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll be back next week. Actually, no, we'll be back later this week, won't we, Justin?
Yep, Thursday we got the Hogs of the Cyclones coming on.
And who are the Hogs?
Good episode. Just the offensive lineman.
There you go. That's not
great
just
name for your O-line.
Yeah, I mean, that's
the big boys.
It's kind of what they've always been known as, the Hogs, the big boys or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we're getting the offensive lineman from the 2019 4A Tennessee State champion Elizabethton Cyclone high school football team, and this will be the second episode in our installment to get these guys on. And the first one we had Deuce on, and it was a lot of fun having him come on and talk about everything that they were doing. I'm excited to hear what these big guys are doing to get themselves prepared for their high school football season, and how things have changed from when we had Deuce on till now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you'll remember, he was talking about how they were dipping the the jump ropes into the sanitized buckets. They were social distancing on the field and stuff like that. Now I'd say they've probably put the helmets and pads on, so social distancing might be a little bit more different.
Yep.
All right. We'll be back Thursday night. Tune in, and we'll definitely be back next Monday night for episode 103. Peace.
Thanks for listening. New episodes are recorded every week.